listening to the SBP Podcast Mobile Filmmaking, episode 141, and I'm your host, Susie Botello. Hey, guess what? This is going to be a really fun show for you, and our guest is in LA, but he's coming on here in just a minute. And before I do that, though, before he gets on here, I just wanted to ask you a question. I don't know if you know this or not, but I've been providing this podcast free to you, and you're on my mind constantly when I'm preparing this. I'm doing this for free for you. It does cost me, but it doesn't cost you anything. And one thing that I would love to know, or at least think that's happening, is that you're sharing it with people that you care about, people who perhaps might get some sort of benefit from listening to this. I hope you're getting some benefit from it because, that's why I'm doing it. My main purpose for doing this in the first place was because back in 2017, there was no one else doing this. No one else had a dedicated podcast for mobile filmmakers and smartphone video enthusiasts. And so I had all these people that I had connections with through, pioneering this whole film festival, smartphone film festival thing. And because of that, I got to have wonderful, really cool, passionate, and inspiring conversations with a lot of filmmakers from around the world. And some of them come to our film festival every year, and we have some pretty decent conversations here, but doing videos of those conversations is very time consuming. It takes a lot of work, and it takes time away from people who come to San Diego to our film festival and enjoy themselves. Not to mention all the little technical stuff like, recording over an hour with each guest and then trying to fill the video with stuff that's interesting to you. Anyways, aside from all that, I thought, wow, having a podcast, which I had no idea how to do myself. I had to go all in and do all this research. I had to buy this equipment. I had to figure a lot of stuff out. I've learned a lot. I can literally teach this now. And one of the things that really prompted me to do it was having the people that I meet through emails, the people that submit films or that want to submit films that for whatever reason don't. All these people, meaning you, if you're listening to this, I'm talking to you, right? And I figured, what, a lot of times you can't come to the film festival. It's totally fine. I get it. You're in another country across the world, and, the situation is not like, oh, I can take a vacation, which is great to take a vacation and come to San Diego out of all places. So I thought, wow, you really need to meet these filmmakers. You really need to hear all these stories. And I want to share these conversations that I get to have with all these people. And what a great way to do it, by bringing it to your ears in the way that you're listening to this right now. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to do the work, and I'm going to do it because I care that you know this. And if you know about me, if you know about the film festival and all these things, I'm not looking to be rich or anything close to it. I'm looking to provide a platform for what has become a growing global mobile filmmaking community. And I love to bring everyone together. And if I can't bring you here in person for whatever reason, and even if I can, it's always temporary. But, I can come to you through your ears in this podcast, bring you all the wonderful guests that I bring to you. I know, everyone is different. They all share some great stories and tips, some information. Everyone knows that my goal here is to inspire you And so, you know, I would like to know that you're sharing this. I would like to know that not only are you listening, but you appreciate it somehow. If you're getting something out of this, please give back. Any little thing that you can give back. We have I have a Buy Me a Coffee account and Patreon and things like that. I never really asked for those things. I just put the links in the notes and hope that someone will give. But you know, after 5 years of doing this, I've got a lot invested in this. I could quit this any moment, of course. And, you know, it's not something I would like to do at all. I continue to do this on my own, no matter what. I will keep bringing this to you. But if you get something out of it, if you like it, if you're listening, you know, if you can't support what I'm doing and, you know, help me out a little bit with those through those links, then at least, you know, share it. You know, let people know that you're listening to it. Let them know what you get out of it, you know. So that's all. That's all I wanted to mention to you. But yeah, I'm sitting here prepping everything and I'm going, wow, it's been over 5 years since I started this. Late October of 2017 when I started this. And here we are. It's past the middle of January when I'm recording this right now. So this is episode 141. And my guest is coming on right now. I'll introduce you to him. And get ready, you guys. This is going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. And you're going to get a lot out of it. So let's go. Let's get down and let's get to it. And it's midnight. It's midnight.
It's actually past midnight.
Oh my God. It's actually tomorrow. We're into the future.
Yeah, it's my mom's birthday actually today.
Oh, happy birthday to Levi's mom.
Happy birthday, Mom. Her name's Tracy.
Oh, Tracy, you're a rock star.
She's a pretty cool lady.
Yes, and you are Levi's mom. Oh my God. Hey, I think we should start this. In case you haven't noticed, this is the SBP Podcast. And we're talking to Levi Austin Morris, who's in LA.
Hello.
And Levi just finished and completed his epic first mobile feature film. Am I correct on all this before?
That is correct. Yeah, okay. This is the first feature that I did on a mobile film. Yeah. Or mobile phone. Yeah.
I do that all the time too. It sounds alike. So the first feature. And I have to tell you, because I mean, this is not the reason we're talking, but of course it helps to know that he submitted it to the International Mobile Film Festival for this year. And,
sure did.
And last year he was literally at the film festival. He didn't have a film. He wasn't participating in that sense, but he had participated and planned to come with his short film, The Tea, which, by the way, your performance was incredible. It's my favorite on that.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
that was a very fun film to do.
Yes, and so he did that in 2020. Was planning to come, and then the governor decided to. Well, it wasn't his fault. It was the
entire country, the entire
whole
world.
was shutting down. But you know, it started at the like literally just a few weeks before our film festival. So we switched gears, but you know, finally, in 2022, last April, you came to the film festival. Yeah. And we finally got to meet in person. Levi,
I can't believe that was our first time meeting because I feel like I've been talking to you forever, but you're right. That was the first time that we met. Yeah.
That's what happens, you know, when you in this, you know, like, okay, so this is a niche, what they're calling a niche, even though it's mainstream, right?
Yeah.
And the thing about it is that when you talk to people here, you know, like I was just sharing, you know, with our listeners before you got here that I've been doing this podcast. I've been recording this podcast for for over 5 years, since 2017, late 17.
Okay. Wow.
I know.
Good for you.
Well, I think so. The whole thing that keeps me going with this is conversations with people like you that I know that are, that you who is listening, you're getting something out of this. And so, every time a guest comes on, I'm like, well, my purpose with our conversation is to inspire people, to live out, to realize their dream. It just so happens that we focus on mobile filmmaking. And, I had to go to the Apple store today. It'd be funny if they were listening right now, because I was talking about the podcast and the film festival, and I was sharing with them, the reason, that I do this is the connection that we all have with each other. And that comes through the stories. And that's the powerful thing, that we can tell the best stories that can, in the format that is the best to tell stories with, which is movies. Mm-hmm. And it's because of a phone. And I told them, I'm like, it doesn't have to be an iPhone. And they were shocked. And they just like, their mouths, their jaws dropped open. Wait, you mean people are making films with something other than the iPhones? I'm like, yeah, Android phones.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were shocked. They thought everybody was just making movies. So let's drive this home. Now, I know you did also with the iPhone.
I did. It was an iPhone. It was 2 iPhones, but yeah.
Yeah. Talk about, let's go into this. Now, Levi, share. Now, I do want to share that the last time that we spoke, it was episode, I believe it was 102. I feel like I'm talking about a fever.
But a good fever.
Had a fever of 102. It was episode 102, and the date was June 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm
It was
putting
right after. It was just before we started shooting. Then wasn't it? Yeah. It was right before we started shooting. Wow.
Because what happened was, remember we did that Zoom panel.
Yeah.
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 And so maybe I'll just throw a link for you guys. I'll throw a link in there as well to that panel so you can see. Levi. We were doing that panel, and then we did this thing, and you were holding the campaign, the funding campaign, which was incredible. I actually would ask you listeners to listen to that one, because you're going to learn a lot about funding campaigns. And if you fund your own films, you can not only make better films, but you can seriously own them, and you make new friends.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So, all right. So now tell us, because from that point forward, what have you been up to?
Oh, my Lord. So since June of 2021, we filmed in July of 2021. So literally right after you and I did our thing, we successfully raised the funds for production with our campaign. And then we went into production. I had worked on sort of the storyboarding and the shot list and everything prior to that, so that we were ready. My producer was incredible and got all the props and everything that we needed together, and all the team that we needed. We had in place, and so we started filming in July, and we filmed throughout July 2021. We had 16 shooting days. They were 14-hour days. They were incredibly long. They were stressful, but they were fun.
And you did take weekends off or something, right? Like I told
you.
I told you.
It wasn't. You did tell us to. We did not take weekends off, but we would film like a few days. There were a couple of days that were overnight shoots, and so when I was scheduling the overnight shoots, I took the advice of you and others, and I made sure to schedule a day that we could all rest in between some of those overnights so that we got enough rest. So yeah, I think we started, I want to say like July 6th was when we started.
Wow.
And we didn't finish until like July 28th because of like taking some time off as during the process as well. But yeah, it was 16 days and most of the days were 14-hour days. And we shot the film. And then once I started editing it took me a while. There was some personal stuff in my life that it took me a while to get back into editing. But I got back into editing in, I will say, like December.
You dipped in and out of the zone.
Yes. Yeah. But December I started editing, I think. And then I had a rough cut by, I want to say April. And then I was fine tuning it until probably August. And I want to say in August I had a final, like, this is the film.
Nice.
So yeah. And then we started to submit. So we started submitting to various festivals. Yeah.
So, okay, so I've had the privilege, you guys, obviously. There's no way I'm going to sit here and talk about a film that I didn't watch. That'd be horrible. But I watched the film and I noticed at the end credits, you gave every one of your, the people that helped funding.
Oh, for sure.
We're all in the credits. And it's such a great film. You guys, when you're funding a campaign, you never really know, right?
Yeah.
What you're going to get, from that, your name is going to be in the credits. There's some films that I've worked on and they're not illegal films, if you know what I mean. It's not porn or anything like that. It's just like they were not films that I'm proud of, how they turned out.
Yeah.
Because one thing is production, and everything in production, you do your best, and you're giving them the goods, and then what they do with it after that, you don't really get to see it.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're going, what happened to it? And they couldn't finish it. So it never goes anywhere. But if it did, you're like, I don't want my name on that
attached to it. Yeah.
But in this film, everyone whose name is in the credits and you did a good job on the credits. I could see like all these titles and all the names, and it's a big deal for doing that. This. You're an actor. Yeah. As well. So that if your name is not in the credits, it doesn't. So I watched Avatar 2.
Okay.
And I went to the theater and I was telling my friend, we're standing there. We were trying to leave, but I was looking at the credits. And and it was like an overwhelming amount of credits,
For sure.
And I said, and there were like a million names all fitting into, it's a huge screen, but the names were little. And I told her, I said, if your name is not, even if you just served coffee, you know what I'm saying? Of course, it's more than that, but I'm just saying everybody has to be in it, because if you're not in the credits, no matter what, then as far as the industry goes, you weren't a part of that film. Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so imagine the people whose names are in this film. Now, I'm not being silly here. I'm not comparing this to Avatar, of course. But I'm telling
We're
you,
not there yet, but we'll get there.
The quality of the film is better than what you would expect from an iPhone. It really is. You did an incredible job. You're an independent filmmaker, and you pulled off a real independent film. You know what I'm saying? Thank you so much. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, you did a great job. And as I keep preaching here, you also had good actors.
Yeah.
And that plays a lot into it.
Yeah.
And the direction was good. And I know you were acting and directing, but the direction was good. The timing on things, this is spooky.
That is what we hope,
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the film itself, so that, everyone understands what the heck we're talking about here.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's a movie about a woman who is suffering from sleep paralysis. She has some trauma in her past with her family, and she's been suffering from sleep paralysis with an entity that visits her while she sleeps. And she starts to believe that this entity is more than just in her dreams. So she hires a paranormal investigator to come and help her sort of figure that out. And we sort of like go into that and as well as sort of like solving the trauma and the grief and the everything that she's been going through that caused that paralysis. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
it was done in you did have several locations.
Yeah, so we had one main location. When I wrote the script, I was writing the script mainly during quarantine, and it had to do with sort of my own feelings of isolation, as well as like a lot of my own traumas and whatnot that I was dealing with in therapy. And I am somebody that has always naturally, without intending to, channeled my own sort of experiences through my art form. So it's not like directly my story, but it is still my story a little bit. And so so in this film, it like I was dealing with those feelings during quarantine, and so I was actually living in that house that we filmed in because my friend who owns that house, the lead actress in the film, she was staying with her parents in Irvine, and she offered me and my ex her place to stay. And so during that time, I was writing the film, and I would walk around her house and sort of like figure out where I wanted things. So it helped a lot as far as like creating the energy of the space and whatnot.
No kidding, right?
Yeah. It was
and
really
that
exciting.
basement, that felt like I had seen it before.
Oh my God, that basement was a nightmare, and I will tell you why.
Well, because remember remember that you made a video for 2020. Yes, you made a little video for the
Yeah.
Yep.
That's so funny. That's so funny. Yeah.
The famous basement.
The famous basement. That basement, so my friend, her name is Allison. She's the one who owns the house, and she's the lead actress in the film. But she always talks about how scared she is of that basement. And when I was writing the script, I walked around the entire house, but I was so scared to go in the basement by myself. And my ex never wanted to go down in the basement with me. So when I wrote the basement stuff, I never went down there. So when it came time to film it, the basement was so much smaller than I anticipated. And so it was like, thank God we were filming on a phone, because we could not have done that with a larger. It was
literally like a walk-in closet, but it was a basement.
Yeah, it's a crawl space basically, with stairs that lead down to it. So it was like, thank God we filmed this on a phone. Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
It really, like, the phone was the only reason the basement worked. So, yeah, but it ended up working really well. And that, I mean, it's a significant part of the story, as you know. So, yeah.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, yeah, keep going. So you did you did really good on the blocking of the entire film.
Thank you.
And part of it was because of that, and that also helped a lot. And because it was her house, she was very familiar with the house too. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, like, I think just like in planning the storyboard and everything, like, that's something that's important to me. I really enjoy seeing how I'm going to shoot the film before I even start shooting it. I want to see, like, the actual story on the page. And so I draw out the entire storyboard. And then when we are on set, I have my storyboard actually attached to my shot list, so that me and I did the cinematography along with my fellow teammate Emerson, and so like we would constantly refer back to my storyboard and my shot list, so that we were sticking to my vision for the story and for the film. And so, yeah, it was that was incredibly helpful as far as like the cinematography and the blocking and everything. Yeah. Yeah. But there was definitely like I did a lot of research leading up to the project because there was a specific feeling that I wanted. I knew I wanted like the feeling of isolation, and I wanted the feeling of sort of like claustrophobia of her being by herself in her house.
So I want to bring up all the details of the research that you did, but first,
Okay.
you did a great job with the audio.
Oh, thank you. Whew. That's
Yeah, I was
appreciate
really
that.
like, okay, you got a good. So you captured the audio externally.
Yes, we had a Zoom, and we had a attached a boom mic to it.
Yeah.
We also have lavs. This is all stuff that when we were doing our crowdfunding, our fundraising, we had put everything, all of our intentions, like we made it very clear to the people who contributed to our fund where the money would go, and what
in
equipment.
detail, because I
Yeah.
I remember that conversation, and
Yeah.
I think we were talking about microphone brands or something. Too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was super important to us that everybody knew where the money was going and the equipment that we were getting. And we got everything that we wanted to, which was great. And so, yeah, we had professional audio equipment on set. And we had somebody there recording the sound. And then I will be honest, there are certain scenes that are.
Please do be honest.
Oh, yeah. There are certain scenes that were not our friend due to being outside and dealing with the elements.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So there is a lot of ADR in the film. Whether or not it is obvious, that makes me happy if it's not. But
it really no. See, so ADR is a part of normal filmmaking. It's just that it's expensive usually, and it's kind of a pain to have to do.
Oh, it's a pain for an indie film too. Yeah.
And so it for indie filmmakers it's avoidable. If it is, then avoid it. But for the most part, in every film that you watch, for the most part, right, all the Hollywood films and stuff like that, I mean, they hire the pros to, that's part of their budget is doing ADR.
Yeah.
And so they do that. So it's part of the reason why your film has that cinematic feel to it, because so cinematic, I know there's always been a debate. What is cinematic, and really it comes down to, if you just dive away from all the details of what it could be, what it couldn't be, and all this stuff, go to the top and look down from the mountain and say, I'm watching a film, and this feeling.
Yeah.
The feel
it's like that
of the
suspension
film,
of disbelief.
Yeah, it's kind of like I would watch this in a large, in a theater. That's what cinematic is.
Yeah. And I will say, like, we got accepted into a festival in December, and we were able to watch it in a theater here in LA, and I was so nervous because I was like, is this gonna hold up? I'm not sure. And when I saw it on the big screen, it was one of the most incredible feelings, because it was like it not only did it live up to it, but like there were people, like I'm super grateful for the people who showed up to our screening, because like I will say there was probably 40 to 60 people there, and I maybe knew 10% of them. And so it was like, it was overwhelming, the amount of people who walked up afterwards and were just like, this looked incredible for being filmed on an iPhone. So
I would call that the Sean Baker effect.
Oh my God. And I love Sean Baker. He is one of my favorite filmmakers. So
because it was with Tangerine, where he showed it, and it was at the end, right? When it's like, oh, and this was shot on an iPhone, and it just blew everybody's mind. Yeah.
Sean Baker's incredible. So I received that because I love him. But so it was super exciting, and I'm grateful that it held up so well. So yeah.
Yeah, no, you did good. All right, let's talk about the gritty stuff.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, let's talk about this. Now, you have personally a connection to this film.
Yes.
So why don't you go
You
ahead and just share, your side of the story, and then what you found out during the research, and how much of that research you actually had to play. By the way, guys, we're putting the link to the trailer in the notes, because you really need to watch it, so that you'll understand what we were actually talking about here.
Yeah.
And it'll be, I mean, it's not like watching the entire film, but be here.
It'll give you a feel of what the
Yes,
film is.
and
Yeah.
you know, just watch the trailer. Okay, go for it, Levi.
Sure.
Yeah.
So my connection, besides the feelings of isolation I was going through during the quarantine, the COVID quarantine, I have some trauma that I've been working through with a therapist, in regards to some family stuff. Am I going into that? Is that what you want me to go into?
Yeah, I mean, if you're comfortable doing it.
No,
I mean,
I'm fine with it. Yeah,
I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist or anything like that,
Yeah.
but if you feel comfortable discussing your personal,
Yeah, I'm totally fine.
Yeah.
I've always been a bit of an open book. So I mean, to like abbreviate, to not go into like the heavy stuff, but I grew up I'm the youngest of six kids. My parents are still married. I'm from a very small town in Minnesota. I grew up, my mother is very strong, but also very flawed. I love her so much. She is truly one of my favorite humans. And my father was an abusive meth addict. And so I grew up with sort of that as parentals. And so it has sort of found its way into a lot of my work. And so in writing the script, the lead character, her name is Haley, the character's name is, that is sort of the journey that I'm on now, of like overcoming the obstacles, the grief, the whatever, the trauma of my childhood. And then the character that I play, his name is Nikki. That is sort of the journey I think I could have taken had I never left my hometown. And I say that because most of the people in my hometown are drug addicts. And so, yeah, like it's a very personal story for me, because like it is sort of the journey that I'm on and the journey that I could have gone on. It's also a story of codependency between these two siblings, because they're the only thing that they had, as well as sort of healing the relationship with one of the parents. So
Do you feel like turning the internal story and putting it out as a film may have helped you in some way therapeutically?
I think that, yeah, I mean, 100%. Like, one of the things that I talk to my therapist about is that, like, I'm grateful that I have this self-awareness of what I'm going through when I go through it, because what I'm able to do is I'm able to purge those feelings in whatever my creative work is. And so, like, what I was processing, what I needed to process in that moment, I successfully did. And I feel significantly better about the feelings that I had at the time of writing, and sort of during the production as well. Because
and also because you played the character.
Yeah, and what I was just about to say, is that like there's some incredibly emotional scenes which you can attest to because you've seen it, and those feelings are incredibly real, like for both myself and my co-star. Because she's one of my close friends, and so she's very aware of sort of what I've gone through and what I've shared with her. So like there's some very real feelings in there as well, but like it definitely helped sort of purge those. But it also made it for probably a little more difficult with some of the days on set, where it was like, all of us were feeling those moments, so yeah.
And direct. So you see, it's so incredible, in a way, just looking at this from the perspective of an outsider, right?
Yeah.
But you had to play the outsider and the insider at the same time.
As far as like directing and acting?
You had to direct it. You wrote it, right?
Yep.
Then this was your movie.
Yeah.
And so then you're directing, you were doing some of the filming as well. And then you're also in charge of everything from the outside point.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you've got to be this character, which is difficult to play, not because it's a difficult character to play, although it is, but also because there's some internal things going on.
Yeah. I will say this was the most, like I've made quite a few short films, one other feature that was not filmed on an iPhone, and then this one. Without a doubt, this was the most difficult thing I have ever done. And I have told my team that I will never do this again. As far as like having the team as small as we had, I need more people on set just because I was wearing so many hats, and to balance all of that, it was incredibly emotional. And I will say, I mean, we're speaking very candidly here.
Yeah.
I also like the internal stuff that I was struggling with, that it took me a while to get back to editing. I went through a breakup. I was with my partner for 9.5 years. And then we broke up shortly after finishing filming, but there was a day on set, because he helped on set, that I knew it was the end of my relationship.
Oh.
And so that made it even more difficult, because I was like, I know that this is the end. And yet I have to continue to push forward and finish this project.
Because you got a team too.
Yeah. And actually, when you watch the film, it is the final scene in the woods, when I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm just going to say it's the final scene in the woods where I have a conversation with my sister.
It's when Little Red Riding Hood talks to the wolf.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Let me counsel you for a second here. What you said, I will never do this again. Yeah. I want you to take the context of what you were experiencing with everything you just shared, with why you would say that. But if you step outside of that context, you could do this many more times. Levi,
well, I mean,
you are so talented as a director.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
And as a storyteller.
And I didn't mean I will never direct a film again or anything like that, because I already have the
but I think you could do it with even 3 people. You would do great. You wouldn't want to do something as courageous.
Yeah.
As
much
what you
smaller. I think a lot smaller on that if it was just 3 people. Yeah.
Yeah.
But my producer on this project, who is absolutely incredible, and she and I, like, it's funny the way we found each other, because like she's a friend of a friend, and then when I finished the script, I was very proud that I finished the script and I posted it online, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I finished the script for my feature. She messaged me and she's like, I'm a producer and I would love to produce this.
Nice.
And she hadn't read it. We didn't really know each other. But we have become, she's one of my best friends now. And I've told her, I'm like, you are my producer on every project moving forward. And she was like, girl, I am there. So
nice.
It helps to have a team that is incredibly supportive. And so like moving forward, like I don't want a team as small as the one that I had. And granted, I will say one of the reasons we kept it so small was because we were still coming out of COVID.
Yeah.
So we needed to be safe. So we had like a team of 8. But in the future, I want a bigger team so that I don't feel so stretched thin.
No, of course. Yeah. And you also you also want to be able to like breathe,
Yeah. That'd be nice.
But no, I told you when I met. So when we were talking before the Zoom thing, and I was like, after the tea, because again, I I have to share this with the people that are listening, which the whole thing is sharing it. That there was so much production value on the tea because this is like the Renaissance times.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so from the costumes, the house, the furniture, you know, and then the color grading that you did, you know, was also, you know, it was all done so well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I told you did such a good job with that film.
Yeah.
And why aren't you doing a feature film? You're ready for it, right?
Well, look at that. We just did one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you took the advice.
Yeah. The peer pressure paid off.
Right?
Yeah.
No, I see, you know, I mean, it's there's no film that's ever perfect.
Yeah. Oh Lord.
But you know,
it took me a long time to not just see the flaws. And I will say I probably up until the screening, all I saw was the flaws. And then the screening happened and the response was incredible, or the premiere at the festival.
But you're so emotionally connected to the art.
And and that's what my producer kept saying to me. She's like, you need to step away because like you are your own worst critic, and you right now you're only seeing the flaws because of how much.
That's the artist, and that's what I'm trying to say is the fact that you completed it and finished it anyways.
Yeah,
it's very hard because one thing is to make a film. You know, it's one of the reasons why you want people during the production to get paid. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Because once it goes into post, God only knows what can happen there. And when you're really concentrating on the details of your film, the audio, which is the last part, is always the most nightmarish thing. Yeah. Along with, you know, and you had, you know, we need to talk about this a little bit. You had some special effects and things like that as well. Mm-hmm. All those things together, there are many more films that you guys can imagine that never make it past the production. Yeah. And as an artist, you know, with any project that you do, you know, that's a work of art, you get very emotional about the fact that it can't be done the way you want to. I mean, remember when you were like 3 years old and you pick up the colored pencil or the crayon or whatever, and you're like, I can't stay within the lines. That was always my problem.
Absolutely.
And you get frustrated. And then you just go, that's it. Forget it then. You know, you can have a fit and never finish your film. Levi, with everything that you went through to make that film, not to mention on top of it, the pandemic. Yeah. The breakup, the everything, and you still finished it. Man, bravo. Good
Thank
job.
you. I genuinely appreciate that. Yeah, it was a process, but the one thing I'm grateful for is how stubborn I am. I am just genuinely like there's nothing else I want to do with my life other than create and be a storyteller and be a filmmaker. And so
that's what I love about you.
Yeah, but it worked out in this situation because it is definitely the reason that I pushed so hard. And one of my friends, actually, she pointed out, I think it was Eddie Izzard, has a quote that's, I don't know if it's Eddie Izzard, but somebody has a quote where it's basically like every artist has a point where the work that they create is not at the quality that they want it to be. But they create anyway. Yeah. And so like that's sort of where I'm at, where it's like there were little things. When I watch the film, I still see mistakes, and that's just because it is who I am, and you know I'm a perfectionist. But I can also watch the film and I can go, Jesus, we did that. Like you know, like this didn't exist, and now there's like a deeply personal, spooky, scary movie that exists now, and it's more than just what's on the surface. You know, it's more than just being a scary movie. It's also about these other things. You know, so
good storytelling, right?
Yeah,
a real story behind it. I love the stories behind the stories too.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the special effects and everything else that went into
absolutely.
it. Yeah.
Yes. So when we were raising the money for it, I knew when we shot the concept trailer, I did the makeup for the creature in our film, the old hag. She's the demon that visits the sleep paralysis demon that visits our lead character. I did her makeup for the concept trailer, and then we raised money during the fundraising so that I could hire a professional makeup artist, one who had an indie rate, so that I, didn't have to give her the entire fund that we got. Yeah. So she had an indie rate, and she was great. She took what I did in the concept trailer and she heightened it, which was really exciting. And then she and I had talked about the other characters that needed special effects leading up to filming. So she knew what I wanted. And then there was this beautiful, when I was writing the script, I found this beautiful mask on Etsy. It's called a blind mask, and it's called a blind mask only because the eyes are fully covered, but you can still see through the mask if you're wearing it. But I found this mask and I was like, this is what our demon will be wearing. And so I informed her, this is the mask I want to use. And we talked about sort of what I wanted from that character, because he's sort of feeding on the lead character throughout the film. And so we wanted it to always center back to his mouth. And so what we ended up doing is we really accentuated that by having blood from his mouth all the way down his chest and all the way down to his stomach. So it's this really gruesome, sort of creepy looking, ominous figure who visits her. And so, she ended up being, during production, the most expensive thing, the makeup artist.
And what about in post-production? Because you had some serious, you had to manipulate everything. You had to color grade everything.
So I actually edited myself.
Theme. I know, that's so, and you also did all the drawings, right?
I did, yes. Yeah. I'm a visual artist as well. And so, and one of the things I've been wanting to do is I've wanted to incorporate my visual art into a film. But I never could think or figure out how to work it in. And so with this story, it fits so well. When I was writing the script, that I was like, I will absolutely be doing this. That is something I will say I did regret when it came time to actually get started, because I felt crunched as far as the time to put into the visual art that would appear in the film. Had I had more time, I do think that I could have had some stronger images. And this is just my own personal.
Yeah, I was gonna say, stop it.
But it worked out. It still reads well and it works well for the film. So my producer bought that sketchbook, and then I went to town just creating as many things as I could before we started filming. What
about the demon book? Because the cover on that was pretty interesting too.
Yeah, so I did a lot of research ahead of time as far as wanting to have a specific demon book, a specific type of demon book for the film, and this is the book that the paranormal investigator pulls out in the film. And I found a book that I liked, but it was called, I want to say it was called The Encyclopedia of Demons, and I thought that sounded really stupid.
There's an Encyclopedia of Demons. How awesome.
Actually, I have it.
Must be interesting.
Oh, I thought it was in front of me, but that's the sketchbook. I still have the sketchbook. It's literally right in front of me. But the demon book it was called The Encyclopedia of Demons, and I took sandpaper and I sanded off the encyclopedia of, and so it just said demons, and then I found a symbol online of various demons and demonology, and I actually drew that myself on the cover. So yeah, and that's actually something that happened a lot with our project. My producer would buy the pencil box Yeah. We just found a wooden pencil box off of Amazon, and then I distressed it and I made it look older, and I designed the symbols that would go on the cover of it. And so it was definitely a labor of love in that, like, every aspect of this film is my
I
producer
have
and
to say this. I just have to. This is going to sound really corny, but the devil is in the details.
you know what? You're not wrong. Yeah. But yeah, and that's something that always matters to me too, is the details. Like I am truly a perfectionist, probably to a detrimental point sometimes, but it makes me prouder of my work when I'm finished with it. So I'm genuinely incredibly proud of this project because so much of it came from so many people. Like, it wasn't just me. Like even decorating the set every day. Like my team was diligent and worked so hard, and like, you know, like it may not be obvious to you as a viewer, but like me as the filmmaker, like we had a haze machine to really create the atmosphere of these scenes, because that adds sort of a heaviness to the energy, and it really like helped us build on the psychology of this character who is feeling depressed in her house, like the heaviness. So
Yeah, I noticed the change on that.
Yeah.
In some of the scenes, you know, like from her dream and when she was down, and how bright it was when
Yes.
her brother, especially from the opening scenes.
Yep. And that was all on purpose. Like,
Yeah.
it was like the scenes that I am in, we wanted it to be very saturated and very bright. And then every dream sequence, it's very bright and very saturated. And then when she's in the real world, there's a heaviness and a haze, and it's much less saturated.
And the film just gets darker as it goes along.
Oh, it really
gradually.
does. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not easy to
you picked
do.
up on all that. I'm so happy.
Of course I did. And of course I realized it was done on purpose. But yeah, it had that effect. And you know, again, that first scene is very bright. You know what I'm saying? Even when she looks at the window, you know,
moment?
the one, so she's watering, or she's starting to water.
Oh, yep. Yeah, I know what you're talking
And
about.
she looks at the window. That I just don't want to give away too much. I think
good.
it's in the trailer though, but you can't tell exactly when that happens.
Yeah.
But then, you know, and then they go for a walk and all these things, and it's very bright. It's a beautiful setting, beautiful neighborhood, right?
Yeah,
and
it's a beautiful neighborhood.
The funny thing about it is, because it was, I'm sure that was shot during the pandemic, unless you bribed all your neighbors to stay inside, and you know, I have no idea.
That was a nightmare. That was like filming on a street. Like, it is a quiet-ish street, but we shot it one day, and then I watched the footage back, and we had to reshoot the entire scene. But so we actually shot that twice. We had a pickup day, and we shot that scene again on the pickup day.
So did you have lawnmowers and?
We had lawnmowers, we had construction, we had cars going by. There was one guy who was on a motorcycle nearby, and he kept revving the engine.
Oh, no.
I mean, like, if you watch the dailies, if you watch any of the footage back, you just see me and my cameraman at that time, because I'm in that scene. So he's recording, but we just keep looking at each other and we keep going, fuck.
You know, I was working on this one film, and the people, again, when you're picking neighborhoods, right? The guy, every time he would hear from across the street, right, that, oh, they're being really quiet now, they must be filming.
Uh-huh.
And so he would start with his little weed whacker.
It's just like, why? Why?
Because, so you have to inform, you know, some people may not know this, but you have to inform your neighbors that you're going to be filming.
Yeah.
You know, it's not only polite, it's practically required.
I mean, I will say the reason we did not is because there are, specifically because we're in LA, there are permits and insurance and costs that come into effect. And that would have made our budget beyond what we could afford. So we really did film this guerrilla style.
Yeah.
And so like we were trying to be as
LA is
nondescript
such a
as
different
possible.
animal when it
It
comes
really
to this
is, yeah.
because it's really all about the, that you're intrusive. You're in the way of public activity. People have the right to walk up and down a sidewalk without having to go around a camera and things like that.
Yeah.
Which is why
Yeah.
tripods get you into trouble.
Yeah.
But
And granted, we had it on a gimbal when we shot this.
Yeah, and that's fine. Nobody really complains about things like that. But in LA, they're just trying to get, I don't know,
more money. Like, like people can call the police.
The mayor of LA is going to call me. Stop that.
Susie, I hear you're encouraged.
But I hear from, you remember, you didn't meet him yet. Stephen Palmer Peterson. He's one of the judges for one of the competitions this year. Okay. And he said, in New York, because he works out of New York and LA. And he says in New York, it's a lot easier to film. It's just a lot easier. And I think it also has to do with the tourism that happens there. Sure. As opposed to, and you'd think that tourism would be, but it's not, it's a different kind of tourism in LA. Yeah. It's people looking for Hollywood stuff.
Yeah. And whereas in New York,
it's historical. There's a lot of historical, in museums and all sorts of things. And,
Yeah.
And in San Diego, it's all about fish tacos. So
hell yeah. I love me some fish tacos.
So yeah, you did a really good job with the After Effects. You did a great job with the sound. And
good.
Now, guys, if it doesn't get selected, we're still going to con Levi to come to the film festival because he's a neighbor.
That's true.
But, I hope it does. And I hope we get to celebrate it there with you on the big screen at the film festival.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about, just a little bit about, so you had the demon and you had the old hag. You had you really did this with a small cast. It's just the production value that I was kind of referring to. First, you have great acting, right? Mm-hmm. You have all those little details of all those little, with the props and things like that you had. You also had the locations. You really went all in on making the locations for the scenes. It literally dressed them up.
Yeah, excellent.
And that's something that comes, I think, from your experience with the tea. I feel like I'm giving you a podcast review of your film here. But that comes from the tea, where you had to, dress that entire thing up in the way that it was. I know that you had a little help because the house, was, had the furniture and stuff, but you still had to set that up and you had to dress the part, play the parts, and there's a lot of little details in that. I still just love that.
That is my favorite short film that I've done.
And the way you run in that film, and whenever I see that, I was playing it back and forth a few times because, oh my God.
That makes me happy. That was a very specific choice.
I don't even know how. You have to really know how to do that. It was so classic.
So yeah. Well, I was a theater major, so I think that's probably where that comes from, is being able to sort of like throw myself into a character without worrying of looking ridiculous. So that was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other thing in theater versus film, that you're being recorded, right?
Yeah.
People can watch it at free will. Whereas on stage,
it happens once.
If you're not watching, you'll miss it. And good luck. And have a nice day, right? After.
Yeah.
So that's really good. So again, so you had your demon, you had your hag, you had your sister, and then you had the I keep calling her a mind reader.
The paranormal investigator.
Yes, the paranormal investigator. And really the voice of the mother, and then you had the father.
And then there was So when I wrote the script, I knew I was writing it for myself and my friend Allison. Like, I knew as I was writing it, this is who this film is for. And then in an early draft, I had quite a few more demons. And then I have a team that I work with regularly, and we would do read-throughs of the script, and then they'd give me their opinions, and I would take their opinions and I would make adjustments if I agreed with them, or I'd ignore anything that I was like, well, that's just an opinion. And one of the best pieces of advice that I got from one of my friends, Melissa, she said, I think you need to kill some of your darlings, because I think it is losing the focus that I think you're intending. And she was right. And so I went through and I got rid of all of the other demons except for the sleep paralysis demon and the male demon at the end. And I already had cast those two roles as well. Like, I knew that my friend Bethany would be playing the old hag, and I knew that my friend Emerson would be playing the male demon, the masked demon. So that's just like, that's my production team. From there, we did have to do some casting outside of ourselves. So I did post on Actors Access as to find somebody to play the paranormal investigator. I had a few people that I knew that were submitting, and I will say I actually wrote it for a friend, that role as well. I did write that for a friend, but she's older, she's in her 50s, but she was going through some stuff in her life that she was unable to take the part at that time, and so we went ahead and we posted on Actors Access. I think we had I want to say 15 to 20 women audition, and then we had maybe 8 callbacks. But the woman who ended up getting cast was a classmate of the lead. My friend Allison was a classmate of hers from Beverly Hills Playhouse. And the moment she came in, first of all, she
nailed it.
She nailed it, but she suffers from sleep paralysis, as does my lead actress. Both of them they suffer from sleep paralysis. So they knew sort of the energy and sort of what I was going for. And the moment we did a read through with, her name is Lisa Gay, the actress who plays the paranormal investigator. The moment we did a read through with her, when we finished, I looked at my team. We had a woman who was doing casting with us, and then my producer, and then Allison. We all looked at each other and we were like, it's her. There's nobody else for this role. And so we cast her. And then there's one other role. The mother, who's another friend of mine. And she's just a friend that I'd been wanting to get involved. She is an actress. She's originally from Utah. She moved to LA to be an actress, and then she hasn't really been acting for a while. And I've been wanting to get her into something. Yeah. So when I asked her to do this, she was more than excited to do it. And that was super exciting to have her on set. And I plan on using her on screen in a future project. But the other role was I don't want to spoil it, but I'm not going to, but there's one other role that appears on screen, and it's a small role, but it's significant to the story. And that is somebody who we also, I ended up casting out of somebody that I knew because I had a specific look I was going for. And she actually wrote the end credits song as well. I reached out. She's an incredible musician, and I reached out to her and I said, would you be willing to write a song for the credits? And she said, no, but I do have a song that I think will work. And she sent it to me, and I was like, girl.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to say that song was really nice.
Right? It's beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah. And so,
another thing that adds production value.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. The film is very well done. I think it's really impressive. And I think, Levi, you're gonna, just remember us little people. Well, you're in the heart of it.
Yeah.
Which is good. And you used to live somewhere else, and you made that big move to go there.
Yeah.
And you've got your family. As a matter of fact, I think it was the the name of the other podcast was something like it takes a village to make a movie.
Yeah.
You know,
and I talked about chosen family a lot in that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, see, guys, you think that, you know, that I'd forget about these conversations. I don't. They're with me. They're in my heart.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's talking to friends, you know, and sometimes some of our guests, I meet them on the podcast. But it's that connection because we share this together, you know, this passion for making films and creating, and this whole thing it's a really, really neat place to be, you know. It really is. And the thing is, like, it's kind of like I would say to someone who builds houses, right? That I mean, I know it's not really comparable, but in a sense, you know, someone who builds houses where they drive every day for the rest of their life, as long as the house hasn't burned down. I'm so cruel.
Sure.
And the house is there, you know, and they show their kids. They know that dad built the house, and then one day it's the grandkids, you know, and hey, you know, my dad, your grandpa, you know, built that house, you know. It's kind of that same thing, the pride that happens when you create something like a feature film or a short film or a music video or a song or whatever it is. When we get to record it, I've always had this fascination with recording things because they're there forever. It's like taking a piece of time and there it is, you know. And with a movie, you fabricate it in a way. You construct this thing. It's there forever. By the way, I don't know if you know this or not, but you can download this episode, and no matter what happens to this podcast in the future,
you'll have the episode. Yeah. Yeah. I will say that's one of the things that I appreciate is I have another friend who, like, once we completed the film, I have a hard time sort of celebrating my victories. Like, I am constantly like focused on how I can improve something or what's the next step, or, you know.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who was like, take a minute and like recognize that you just completed a film that will exist well beyond your life.
Exactly.
And I was like, whew, like, okay, yeah. So yeah, like that was kind of a cool moment to take in and be like, okay, like this will exist beyond me. So yeah.
Yeah, you know, families take family photos. You know, they go to Disneyland, take family photos, and they shoot some little home videos and things like that. We had a family in our very first inaugural film festival. It was a mom with her kids. They shot a movie, a little narrative film. It was so cute.
Okay.
And they got to walk the red carpet together, take photos, you know, all these things.
Yeah.
And that, you know, those kids are now teenagers or something like that.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like that.
They're going to remember that forever. Yeah.
Well, and they get to play it back forever.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
And it's just
That's
such
really sweet.
Yeah. It's such a memorable thing. I mean, I encourage more families to make movies together. It also helps you connect, you know.
And it's like, it's a creative way to like channel whatever, you know, like whatever story you want to tell, or it's just a creative, fun thing to do, you know.
It really is. And like I said, it like all of a sudden family members, just like friends, you know, who are working on films together, all of a sudden it's like, did you know that you're really good at this?
Yeah.
I didn't know that you were really good at this until, well, I didn't know I was good at that until I had to do it, you know. So it's a really good experience. Not to get into the whole family thing, but that's why we call our film crew our family.
Yeah.
You know, and making more films together. So after April, after our film festival, I expect you to start working on your next film, Levi.
I've already started. I've already started the outline.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it's like it's like it's in the works. And it is a feature. But
very good.
But I'm a little intimidated to get started, but like more than what I have. Like I have the outline, but it's a lot to jump off again.
Wow. Well, maybe you can share a little bit at the film festival.
Yeah.
About
yeah.
that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Is there anything else that we need to talk about?
I mean, no, I think the big thing, what I said last time too, is like, don't wait around for permission. Just like do it, just make the art and create the art and tell the story that you want to tell, because your voice is the most important thing that you have. And so like really embrace that and tell your story,
I want you guys to follow Levi, follow Paralysis.
Yeah.
On Instagram. It's at Paralysis the film.
Yep, that's correct.
And it's the same.
You did your homework.
I did. I'm actually looking at that right now because I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
Also on Facebook, it's Paralysis the film.
Yep.
And then let's see, Twitter, it's Levi Austin M. If you're still going to Twitter.
Yeah. So many people jump ship.
Yeah, so many people are they locked their accounts too.
Yeah.
So Levi Austin Morris Filmmaker is his YouTube channel where you can see the other films. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link to the trailer here. I've already got it here. But I'm going to add the Zoom panel that we did. I call it a Zoom panel. It's actually a smartphone and storytelling film panel that we did. It was an event that ended up being a virtual event that took place on January 6th during the
oh Lord,
the big event
during the falling apart of our country.
I know, and I was literally like, wow, but none of us brought it up, which was great.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that I'll also add here is the link for the tea.
Excellent.
Because I just keep raving about that, and I think people should watch it. And
it's a fun movie. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Have a few good laughs after the big scares of the trailer.
Yeah.
Levi, I wish you the best.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And say goodbye to our listeners.
Well, goodbye and create, man. Just get off your butts and create.